Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. It is the Friday before St. Patrick's Day. It is also Ruth Bader Ginsburg's birthday.
What up, Notorious RBG?
We are the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. This is why we're posting on Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Hinson.
I'm Dr. Donnelly.
And in honor of the illustrious Supreme Court Justice's birthday today, rather than doing one of our more normal blog posts or social media posts for happy birthday, we thought, you know what? There's this awesome documentary we haven't seen yet called RBG. How about we watch it and then tell everybody on Facebook and every other channel that we're on what we thought about it. So this is our review of the RBG documentary that came out in 2017, I think.
Yeah, not the movie with Felicity Jones.
Not the On the Basis of Sex that just came out. This is a documentary about the life and times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
That we viewed on Hulu,
yes,
but was originally on CNN.
Yeah, oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I think it was in festivals, too, but, yeah.
Yeah, so there's lots of places you can access it, I'm sure. We highly recommend it. We loved it.
Yeah, and it's pretty short. It's not a long sit.
It's an hour and a half, I think. It's not too bad.
If you have recently perhaps watched a documentary about a pop star and need to remember that there is good and joy in the world and people who are good people, we recommend this as an antidote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because we watched said documentary about said pop star last weekend, and I'm
still tired from it.
I feel like renewed in terms of love of documentaries.
Yeah, that was a rough sit. This one, easy sit.
Yeah, so we've both got a couple of things we just wanted to highlight about the documentary in our review of it. One of the first things I noticed that was awesome was that it was entirely produced by women.
100%.
So written, directed, cinematography, edited, everything.
Music supervisor.
Music, literally every job was a woman, which was really, I am sure, intentional from the filmmakers.
Yeah.
And really something amazing to see, because I don't think I've ever seen that before. I'm sure it's happened before, but I don't remember.
You never noticed it.
You notice it, and we never notice it when it's all men.
Well,
that's
yeah,
the standard. But
it's like if the musical Waitress is a groundbreaking all-female creative team, and when you go to see Waitress, it feels different. The women-only scenes feel different, and This is the same thing. It felt different. The questions were different. The things they focused on were things I actually wanted to know.
The stories they told. Yeah, so it follows the life of Ruth Bader, then becomes Ginsburg when she gets married, from her early interest in the law, does a background into her husband, Marty, who was an absolute hero.
Yeah.
Absolute hero. So they talk about that, but they talk a lot about her interest in the law and where she got started in law school, and then get into her cases, and she starts to take up gender discrimination cases in the 1970s. Mm-hmm. Took 4 cases to the Supreme Court, 5 cases to the Supreme Court in the 1970s on the basis of gender-based discrimination.
And she took more than that, not on the basis of gender discrimination.
Right.
But she worked largely in partnership with the ACLU. And essentially, summary, every single law in this country that ensures equal treatment, regardless of biological sex or socially constructed gender, can be traced back to something that Ruth Bader Ginsburg won for us all.
Yeah. I mean, I had no idea the number of cases that she worked on, and what the issues were. And one of the things she did really, really brilliantly was she spoke about gender discrimination hurts everybody.
Literally.
It doesn't just hurt women.
Nope.
Or transgender people or non-identifying gender. It hurts everyone, including men. And so one of I think the second case she took to the Supreme Court was a man whose wife had died, and he was trying to get Social Security payments so that he could care for their infant child.
His wife died in childbirth.
She died in childbirth. And he wanted to be a stay-at-home dad and raise his son. And he was being discriminated against by Social Security.
Because that's called the mother's benefit.
Because it was the mother's benefit. And so that was the case she took all the way to the Supreme Court and won. That he was then allowed to get Social Security benefits in order to take care of his son. So, I mean, that was for me one of the key things that she did, was she made it about all gender equality, which is what gender equality actually is. Mm-hmm. It's not women trying to become better or
it's
more
not a privacy
powerful
conversation, it's an equality conversation.
Yeah, it is not, this is not zero sum. If one person wins, another person doesn't lose.
Yeah.
we can all win. And that's one of the things she did. And the other thing I love that we learned about this is that she saw change as really incremental.
Yeah, and she did the work.
And so she knew that she wasn't going to overhaul the entire justice system or the entire legal system with like one case.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't Law and Order, and she knew that.
And I love too, they talked about like marching wasn't Ruth's way. Like one of her friends said that. Like marching and protest wasn't Ruth's way. Ruth fought for the law. And I think in our current narrative about how to make change, stuff like marching and big acts and very public declarations get a lot of play. Mm-hmm. And people who don't feel comfortable doing that or who can't for any number of reasons often get, I'll be frank, shamed for it. Like that they're not part of the revolution.
That you're not an activist.
Oh, and like, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg proves, I mean, we've been saying it forever because we have limitations that mean that we can't attend a lot of things or, you know, be active about things. But I mean, I would highly doubt that Justice Ginsburg has attended a march in her life. And she has changed the very face of the world. And so we need to remember that everybody has a part to play based on their strengths, abilities, and gifts. We need to respect those parts and empower everybody to play their own part instead of shoving everybody into a specific definitive mold that may or may not work to their actual gifts.
And for me, that was so empowering to see the work that she did. Because very clearly on the basis of description of her, everybody else describing her, I would say she is a very, very introverted person, socially reserved, does a lot of solitary work, like all the stereotypical characteristics of an introvert, which is what I am. And very often I don't have the emotional energy or capacity to go to public marches or public engagements. It's very, very draining for me. And I don't feel like it's an authentic representation of myself. But as Dr. Donnelly said, it's hard not to feel shamed when it's like, oh, well, you weren't at the march. You know, boots on the ground. That's the only way we can make change. This documentary shows you that there are lots of really small ways and really big ways that you can make change.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be, we need all of them for change to actually happen. We needed the women's liberation movement. We needed Gloria Steinem speaking in front of throngs of women on all of these marches in the 1970s. And we also needed Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who just spent all of her time doing the research. And very clearly, too, arguments.
Like, I think one of the things that people who don't understand the legal system don't understand is that, like, she's praised as a superhero and she's great, but she always had a team.
Yeah.
So, like, we got to hear from her clerks. We got to hear from her colleagues. And that's a really important reminder to all of us that nothing is solitary. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, Ruth did a lot of work on her own. But I think a Supreme Court justice gets 5 clerks, I think, at a time. I could be completely wrong. Mm-hmm. But they definitely get clerks to do all the dirty work. And all the digging and all the intensity. And anyway, the thing, besides being introverted, that I really noticed was how incredibly important her husband was in her journey. Mm-hmm. It's very famous that Marty is actually who campaigned for Ruth to become a Supreme Court justice for President Clinton to appoint her, to nominate her.
Because she didn't want the attention. Like, she didn't want to put herself out there.
And his whole point was the world needs you.
Yeah.
And boy, did we.
Oh, do we.
And as somebody with a husband who is one of the greatest champions of my work, it really struck home as to how much people actually ask John, my husband, if it bothers him that I have a more public role, or if it bothers him that I am a COO, and he like laughs.
Which are really gendered, like you're not supposed to be
the more publicly powerful one.
Because you're a woman, and so we still have these gender stereotypes that we apply to relationships and work positions, and
but like John's an introvert. He doesn't like going to he doesn't love going to the networking events, but he'll go if I need him to. And he does it with a smile on his face, and he's a huge part of he is a silent partner in Abbey Research. You guys don't ever get to meet him, but he's a huge part of our work.
He's there
because he just takes care of things and does stuff. And that was, I mean, for as much as we need to thank the universe and everything for Ruth and her work, and Justice Ginsburg and her work, we also need to thank Martin Ginsburg, because he created an environment in which that was possible. And the partnership there was, I'm certain they both got pushback for it, because in the 1950s, men were not feminists.
No.
I'm sure he lost friends. I'm sure they had trouble. I'm sure her kids got crap for it. I'm positive her kids got crap. Her granddaughter's actually in Harvard Law right now, and that was fun to see. But I'm sure they all took a lot of slack. And so we just want to say thanks, guys.
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks.
for me, one of the things they spent a lot of time with towards the end was a lot of her dissenting opinions of the last few years. And I mean, really, if you want to understand a person fighting for their beliefs, but also fighting a lot of the decisions were gender based and undoing a lot of the work that she had done throughout her career. And one thing she said that I thought was amazing was she said, women. She said, the elevated status of women, we are not put on a pedestal, we're put in a cage.
Yeah.
Like, these laws are not putting us up on a pedestal. They're not protecting us because we're precious. They're caging us. They're restricting us. And I thought that was such an eloquent way to talk about it. But yeah, the documentary in and of itself covers all of this. It's fabulous. It's such a rich introduction. I didn't know a whole lot about her as a person. I knew some of the work that she had done, and I knew some of her dissenting opinions,
Which are beautifully written, by the way.
which are just fantastic prose. But I mean, it shows you also her daughter being at Harvard Law, how far we've come and how far we've not come, because her daughter is at granddaughter's at Harvard Law. And in 2017 was the first time ever that Harvard Law had 50-50 balance between men and women. So this is a long game that we're playing, and there's still a lot of work yet to be done. So thankfully, we've still got Justice Ginsburg around to celebrate her birthday today. And lots of other fantastic gender activists and warriors out there doing all the good work to make sure that everybody is treated equally and respectfully, regardless of their biological sex or socially constructed gender. So for that, I think that's all we have for our review. We wanted to go live on Facebook to make sure that we got it up on Justice Ginsburg's birthday. I hope she's celebrating with a lovely workout and a big piece of cake.
And opera, since that's her true love.
She does love opera. I hope she's going to the opera.
I hope someone's doing her favorite opera in her honor.
But for that, we will see you next week with more happy birthday posts. Look out for a blog coming at the end of the month for the first female justice on the Supreme Court, Sandra Day O'Connor. So celebrating justices this month, Women's History Month, and all year round.
And we'll be coming at you later on in the year as well with more coverage, introducing you to Justice Kagan and Justice Sotomayor, because the Supreme Court is an incredibly important element of our justice system, and I don't think we know enough about them. And so we'll be introducing you to a lot of you, we would assume, to both Justice Kagan and Justice Sotomayor, who are mighty women in their own.
That's right.
And then over the next couple of years, just stick with us, guys. We're going to be talking more and more about important women in politics that we never get a chance to meet because we're too busy doing, the rest of our lives. So we're going to do the legwork for you and introduce you to these incredible women. So between now and then, we're the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I'm Dr. Donnelly.
And I'm Dr. Hinson.
And we're wishing you a very happy Ruth Bader Ginsburg Day.
Bye.
Bye.